So I am new to the dating scene, and I'm single after about 12 years. And I would like to know Abraham's take on dating and how to date Abraham style.
Profusely, passionately, freely, with no strings.
Sounds really good. Could you, if you can elaborate a little bit more, sort of what does a date look like? You read about
It looks like the most fun interchange that I can find from where I'm standing right now. We don't want to use the word fast, but we want to find a word that means from the proximity of where I stand, what's the best use of my interactive time from where I stand? And the reason that we're giving it to you in this sort of odd way is because there's a tendency, especially after you've had a relationship and now that relationship is behind you, and so you've got a long list of things you don't want to repeat, and your vibrational escrow is full of the other side of all of that. In other words, all the stuff you don't want to repeat has already been put, the better version of it, in your vibrational escrow. So you don't have to sort that out or guard against it. You don't have to worry about it. It's already there. And the attraction process has begun even before this relationship stopped. So the attraction of what you want is already powerfully there. But there's a tendency, especially in this environment where, that's why we said profusely. We want you to have the feeling of sort of freely flowing in this, rather than the attitude of, I'm going to get it right this time. Because the attitude, I'm going to get it right this time, causes you to remember what wasn't right, activate that within your vibration, and then make sure that you do all those things again that you don't want to do. Where if you have this carefree, it's all lined up, it's already done, and my work is to have fun in dating, to have fun in lovemaking, to have fun in conversation, to have fun in interaction, to have fun in conversation, to have fun, to have fun, to have fun, to have fun, to feel good, to be stimulated, to be invigorated, to be vital and alive. In other words, I'm not on the search for a relationship, I'm on the search for a meaningful moment, a meaningful moment, a meaningful moment, meaning one that feels good now. And once you find a little bit of that and tune into that, you'll know right away, you'll know intuitively. And so a lot of people intuitively know that, and those are the ones that you hear say when they meet you, I'm not looking for anything serious. And most people, especially women, really don't want to hear that. I'm not looking for anything serious. If someone says that to you, we want you to say and mean it, then you're exactly what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for. The serious stuff bogs us down. What I'm looking for is an excuse to line up with who I am. And what if you have 100 or 200 or 300 different excuses to line up with who you are? Guess what? You've lined up with who you are, and then that relationship must come.
Mm-hmm. What about gender roles? I mean, in terms of, we come into two different kinds. There are two choices, male, female. So obviously there's something important to that, or we wouldn't have that differentiation. Does gender play something in courtship? Where does that fall in?
Well, it's for the most part learned behavior. In other words, you are all source energy. And from our perspective, we cannot feel a vibrational difference between male and female. There is no vibrational difference. So if you're tuning to who you really are vibrationally, law of attraction will sort all of that out. People are so eager to pigeonhole everything and then use part of what they're pigeonholing as their excuse to not line up with who they are. In other words, whether you're talking about gender or race or religion or economics. In other words, aren't there a lot of things that you've lived that you know that you prefer? And isn't it all right for you to get to prefer it? Yes.
What about sex? Where does sex, should you wait a certain amount of time before you have sex with somebody? Do you need to know them well, or do you just get on in there and woohoo, have a good old time?
Well, if sex isn't fun, delay it. Otherwise, it's part of what we were talking about. In other words, it is the single most sought after component in interaction. And therefore, that may be the reason that so many people use it as a weapon or a club or something to hold against another, you see. But your broader non-physical perspective, in other words, let's talk about that sexual calling, that sexual interaction, that sexual feeling, that feeling of attraction that often is then explained through sexual terms, sexual attraction. And many people, most of them outside of this room, would not feel comfortable with what we're going to say next. But there is very little, if any, difference between the energy of alignment and the energy of sexuality. And when you think about it, think about what the components of a really wonderful sexual interaction are. So, two people coming together for co-creation, and by that we're not talking about procreation, we're talking about co-creation, sharing a moment where common intentions are focused upon in an attitude of distraction so that there is a cessation of resistance, makes for an orgasmic explosion of alignment. And we want to say, while everything that is an orgasm is not alignment, an orgasm in alignment, it just does not get any better than that. In other words, it is what that means. It's why people talk about sexual transmutation. And most people, when you begin to talk about lining up energy, or when you begin to talk about having a feeling for the first time in most people's lives, the first time that they are really ready to say to anyone and everyone else, I don't care what you say about this, I'm going the way I'm going, is because something sexual is calling them. We're not saying that sexuality is the path to alignment. We're saying that when you are in alignment, sexuality can be a component of that alignment. So we would not leave it out of the equation. But we also wouldn't use it in the way so many people are using it as a means to say, well, now we are participating in this way. That means that until death do us part, you must do everything that I want you to do. That's the way it is being used. Religions use it. Religions have used sexuality as a means to control people from the beginning of time, and they still are. And it's an interesting thing to watch the nature of all species is that. And isn't it interesting that the subject that is most responsible, that is responsible, that without it, it could not be, for the continuation of the species and population is the subject that is so often criticized and used as the club to hold you outside of your alignment. It is more of a statement of how people really feel about who they are. When you take the subject that is responsible for your very existence and you put it into little boxes of condemnation, it really speaks to how, as a mass consciousness, you've come to feel about who you really are, you see.
As a woman, I think that there's a sense of, there's more of a vulnerability, though. I think that it's been described chemically that there's this chemical bonding that happens more with women who have sex with a man than a man who has sex with a woman. Like, the guy kind of does it and he's like, woohoo, on to the next. And the woman can be... You can call it chemical if you want to, but we would call it vibrational. In other words, if a woman is feeling vulnerable or dependent and is looking to fill that void through a relationship, then she has a different response to the sexual activity than someone who's standing in a place of feeling secure and free, who's not looking for any way to fill a void. We encourage sexuality in the way we encourage all other things, and we've had a lot of discussion about this here today. Line up with who you are and then go to the grocery store. Line up with who you are and then get out in traffic. Line up with who you are and then have your sexual interaction. Don't have your sexual interaction or eat whatever you're eating as your method to get lined up. Get lined up and then act. Line up and then act, you see. There are a lot of people filling a lot of voids with a lot of activity and then complaining that it didn't work. And that's what we mean when we say looking for love in all the wrong places. So you talk about spending a lot of time getting in alignment, and then the action steps sort of go quickly and take care of themselves. So for a romantic situation, you beat the drum of what you want, you tell the story of the man that you want, you get in alignment,
But
you
you see,
feel it.
the advice that we gave you when you asked specifically, and we said, just have fun with it, is that the harder you work on it, the more resistant you are to what you want. It's the thing of trying too hard that so many people do. It's the fear of getting it wrong, and that's what we're just sort of trying to break loose within you. We want you to have an attitude of, I can't get it wrong, and meanwhile, I'm just collecting data. And what I really want's already amassed over there in my vibrational escrow, in my vibrational reality, and all of the components have been drawn to it, and the only missing part is me. Now, what can I do to get in that vortex? That's the question that you want to ask yourself, no matter what it is you're looking for over there. What is the fastest path? What's the path of least resistance to get me inside that vortex? What can I do? Well, first of all, being lighthearted being hopeful is a whole lot closer than being in despair or dependent or brokenhearted or left feeling abandoned, you see. So you want to get within the range of the vortex before you try to get in. Otherwise, if you try to force yourself in, it'll just spin you right out. If you don't match, it'll just fling you off in the bushes. So you've had those experiences, haven't you? So you might as well warm yourself up to the proximity of it. Get hopeful and happy. And that's why our encouragement was, just don't make anything serious about it. In other words, just have fun with it and trust that law of attraction will bring you that. And don't try to make this one it, and this one it, and this one it. Say to yourself, none of you are it. I'm just having fun with you. None of you are it. None of you are it. None of you are it. It's in my vortex. I'm just using you to get into my vortex.
Thank you. Thank you.